Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So in this video I'm going to be showing you guys how to make this dress that someone sent to me on Instagram. So I'm going to just be showing you guys the upper parts mostly. The bottom part I'm going to be making mine shorter, but you can always make yours longer. It's just to increase the length, right? But I'm going to explain everything. So the first thing I did is just to draft out a basic bodice pattern, right? And then the difference is that I added my half an inch. So my shoulder to waist is about 17.5, which is from this red line to this point here, the beginning of this line. And then I added half an inch at the top to join the shoulder and half an inch at the bottom to join the waist, right? And then the width here is just my bust divided by 4 plus 1 inch, and then the waist is just my waist divided by 4 plus 2 inches, 1 inch for the darting and 1 inch for the side seam, right? And then the next thing I did is just to cut out all the sides to make it the same. And then I have about 1 inch here for my zipper. As you can see, this is open this way, is folded, is like 2 pieces for the back, right? And then after that, you're going to cut the shoulder slope, leaving in, you remember this center part is our half an inch for the shoulder, joining the shoulder. So I'm going to just go ahead and cut it this way and leaving just the part that I need as my half an inch for joining the shoulder in here, right? So once you've done that, now the next thing is just the back neckline. So I'm just going to come down from here to like 1 inch for the back neckline, right, which is here. And then you can go ahead and also go ahead and cut that out. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark 1 inch for the back, and then I'm going to just go ahead and use this here to just blend it into this so that my zip will relax better, right? So I've reduced the center by 1 inch so that the zipper part will relax on the when I go to join it together. So once that is done, the only thing I still have to do here is just to pick my dart, right? So now, so guys, I've cut out the 1 inch of the back neckline from here. So this is what I took out from there, you see? So I cut this part out now. And then the next thing you're going to cut out is just the back. So I came up 1 inch from here and then blended it into the back line, just like that. So now we are going to just move over to the front. Guys, this front has a yoke. If you want, you can also cut the back to have a yoke, but it's not like, it doesn't make any difference for me because it's just the same color of fabric that I'm using. So I might as well just make the whole thing the same, like use a basic back pattern for it, where since the design is all in the front, right? So now the next thing I have here is just my basic bodice pattern, but the difference is that I have my shoulder to my bust line, which is at 11.5, and then I have my shoulder to that's your shoulder to your nipple is where your bust line is, your shoulder to your under bust, which is 15.5 for me, and shoulder to waist at 17.5, and then I have extra half an inch at the lower part here to join the bottom, just like I have at the top to join the shoulder, right? So now, and as you can see, my dart came up and stopped 1 inch before your bust line, which is normal how you cut it. So now the next thing I have to do is just to go ahead and I'm going to come in here by 1/4 of an inch, that's 0.25, and then I'm also going to go up by by 1 inch, or you can measure from your neckline to where you want the neck to stop. You can do 1 inch above your nipple line, that's this bust line. So I'm going to do that too, right? And then the next thing I'm going to do is, so on that line I'm going to come in by 1/4 of an inch, right? And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to connect from this point here to this side of my dart, on this side, like this part of the dart, this point here, I'm going to connect it to this part here. So I'm going to take my curve ruler and then just place it until you get it correctly. And then after that, I'm going to go up here by about so come up on this line, from this my under bust line on the side by like half an inch, right? And then I'm going to blend it into this other side of the dart. Remember, there's a center part of the dart and 2 sides, so I'm going to blend this one to the other side. So rule it in form of a straight line and blend it into that line. So that's basically how you're going to cut it. So now I'm going to just go ahead now and cut from here. So guys, the next thing now is just to connect from your neck to this end of this point here. So I'm going to connect from my neck to this part to be the V neckline. So you're going to connect it. If you want, you can do 3.5 as your neck width, right? But whatever neck width you decide to use the same thing for the back. So I'm using 3 inches for the neck width here. So now I've marked my neckline. So all I have to do is just to cut from here. So first I'm going to, so let me just start here so that I can cut this part out, because this is not, I'm not going to be using this part anymore. So cut this one out and throw it away, right? This is not part of the top. So now this is now the part of the top that we're going to be working with. Go in by 1/4 of an inch and then go down following this line, right? And then cut from here all the way and then go up to this 1/2 inch that we marked here now, right? And then the next thing you have to do is I'm just going to, so guys, as you can see, I went in here and took out a little bit more from this front part. So this is it. So I just straightened it out so that it's just straight like this. So you cut out from here to this point, and then this is what you have here. So if I separate it, this is what we're working with. And then the next thing I'm going to do is just to go ahead and mark a straight line here, just so that I can use that as my line for cutting it open, right? So cut, because I need to slash it open so that I can cut my fabric, right? So I'm going to open it up, because if you look at the picture, you will see that it has some gather in between by the parts where the nipple, the dart is supposed to be. Instead, it has some gather. So let me zoom it so you can see. So this is it here. So to make that gather, I need to insert some fabric in between this space. So I'm going to cut it open to the end, but not like almost to the end, right? So this much here, right? So now all I have to do is to go to my fabric and start tracing. But before you do that, don't forget to also cut out this 1/2 inch of armhole for the front, right? We didn't cut it out initially because we need it for the back. We needed it for the back panel, but now the back is out, so we're going to use it to cut the So guys, before you even go ahead to trace, don't forget this dart part, because you see there's nothing sewn on the band part of this, right, which is this part. You're supposed to go ahead and fold this away, right? So all I did here is to make sure that I pinch the side and the side together, and then fold it this way. So I'm going to just pin it down, right, so it doesn't move. Then now I can go ahead and trace this, and I know that once I'm cutting it on my fabric, I don't have to trace out any darting, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and do that now. So guys, as you can see, I've gone ahead and cut this, and you can see where I have my seam allowance. I have seam allowance here, but on the paper I already added the seam allowance for the side, right? So all I have is just in here 1/2 inch, and you see from the paper I also already added for the bottom part, so there's no need to add again. But the place I didn't add is just the one to join these two together so that they can meet up again. So I added half here, all around to this point, because I still you see all the parts I added is where it's going to meet up with this paper. So it's going to meet up with this paper, coming up back again to this point, right? And then you see with the line where this actually is, if you look closely, you'll see where this line actually starts. I notched it on my fabric, right? I notched it. If you look here, you'll see it's notched, so that as I'm folding this part in, you can use lining to turn yours over. But since I'm using a strong fabric, and this is supposed to be like a casual dress, and this Akara has some starch to it, I'm just going to use bias to run it over. Guys, just go with the flow. You will see how I'm going to do it. So you see how I cut this part here. There's no allowance on this edge here, because if I leave an allowance here using 3 inches of neckline, it will not open up the neck more. But if you want to use allowance here and you want to add bias here, sorry, you want to use lining here, then maybe when you're cutting on your pattern, increase your neckline to 3.5, right? So that when you're done, you can use that point. So that when you're done, you can still use the 0.5 as the folding, right? So now what I'm going to do is just to go ahead now and remove this out. Just take this out. And the in between here, I have about 1.5. If you want, you can do 2 inches, but this fabric is Akara. It has some starch, and I don't want it to poke up here, right? So that's why I used like about 1.5 or almost 2 inches here. So now I'm going to remove this, And then I'm also going to remove this one too. Guys, like I said, you're going to be cutting this particular one on a fold, this center one on a fold, and then you're going to trace it out on your lining, right? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut out a lining that looks exactly like this, and then I'm going to join it. And remember, I also left about 1/4 of an inch here to join this one. So on this particular one, I have seam allowance all over here and here too. So I'm going to cut out my lining now exactly like this and join the two together here before I now start joining this pattern to it. But before that, another thing I'm also going to do is to take this pattern here, my back panel. Remember, this is my back here. You see, it's going to meet each other this way. And then I'm going to take this shoulder, join it to this shoulder before I start running my bias, because remember what I said before, I'm not using lining, I'm using bias here. So I'm going to join the shoulder together and then take this other one to this way, and then I'm going to also join the shoulder, sew the shoulder together, and then I'm going to take a piece of bias and run it all the way till I get to this notch. If you look closely, you see my notch here, right? You see this notch I have here, and then I'm also going to do the same thing, run bias all the way till I get to this notch. You see the notch here, right? That is where this part is supposed to come in. So that's where I'm going to stop my bias. So guys, this is it here. As you can see, I've gone ahead and joined the bottom to one side. One side is done, right? So I'm going to show you guys how I did that. So basically, this is what I did here. Like I said, you're going to cut a lining exactly like this one, but the only part you're going to join on that lining is this center part, right? Just this center is where I joined on mine. So this particular part now, and then you see this part here. You see what I did? Like I said, I use bias to finish the neckline from the back. Let me move this aside. From the back all the way to the front. This is where I stopped. So now, like I said, this is where my notch is. So from that notched part is where I'm going to take now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just place it this way, right? The wrong side, the fabric side like this towards the cloth this way, and then the lining is going to cover it behind it, right? So, and before you do that, make sure that that part where you marked your darts, you're going to go ahead and pull it together. Just make a loose stitch right like this and use it to make some gather, so that that part will be put back together, so you have your normal width, right? So this is how I did this one. You see, just went ahead and sewed it. My lining, so the main cloth is sandwiched in between the lining and the cloth, and then I sewed it all the way around back to where the notch is and stopped. So now the same thing is what I'm going to do on this side. I'm going to take it again, starting from this top part now, making sure that my fabric is facing the fabric in between like this. The top is going to start from the top part of where this lining meets the cloth, and then I'm going to just sandwich it between the two of them, and then pull the lining to the wrong side and then the cloth to the right side, and then sew it all the way to the end. And then once you do that, I'm also going to go ahead and cut my sleeve. So to cut the sleeve, what I'm going to do, this is what I'm using here. I don't want it too long, right? Because this is an Akara fabric. So all I want to do here is, so my armhole divided by 2, which is about 10 plus 1 inch is what I did. And then I'm going to come down here by about, I don't want too much pleats at the top. I'm going to do 1.5, and then I'm going to come down 4 inches for my cap height. This 1.5 is going to serve as my puffy, the puffy parts, right? So you can do 2 inches, you can do 3 inches if you have enough fabric and you want it together, right? So I've marked that to 1.5, and then I'm going to mark the 4 inches I came down with, right? So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to mark from this point to the end of this line. Find halfway through, and then mark your normal sleeve width, right? And then you're going to take up the other half curve, right? Instead of marking it to fit in here like your normal sleeve, you're now going to take it up to the top. That way you can get your gather. So that's basically all I have to do. And then the rest of this is going to remain the way it is. And then I'm going to cut this out. So this is how my puffy sleeve is going to look. So all I have to do is the same way we gather this part now, the same way we made this type of gather, right? I'm just going to use my sewing machine to run a stitch that way and pull that part together again, and then insert it at the top of the shoulder. And then once you do that, you're also going to go ahead and fold the edge so that I can pass my elastic inside of it. So fold it to pass elastic. So the total length I have here, because I know you guys might want to know, so the total length I have here is about 13.5 and the width is 11, right? But you can make yours wider if you want get a lot more placed. I don't want that. So I'm going to go ahead now and join the body and couple everything, and then we'll come back and add the bottom to it. So guys, this is it here. Like I said, I've gone ahead and joined mine. So you see it even has the elastic by the sleeve, and then this is the bottom parts of it here. So all I have to do is just to join the bottom here to it. You can even add like a pencil skirt to this here. It doesn't always have to be exactly like the picture, but if you're going for what you have on the thumbnail, as you can see, I've also joined mine together because it's going to be like a flayed dress. It's flowy at the bottom and it's 2 steps, right? So how you're going to calculate it, if you're, because for me what I used here is length of 11, and then the other one is also length of 11, so the two of them are the same length. And then, but if you want to calculate yours, how you're going to do it is basically, let's say you're going for the longer version, right, like the one on the thumbnail. So let's say the bottom part from your waist to your knee, sorry, your waist to your ankle, the length is 40. That's the length of the lower part. We're no longer talking about this upper part now. From your waist, where this one stops, to the end of the dress is 40. What you can do is you can use the center part, make it 28, and then make the lower one 12. Altogether you will get the 40, right? So what you're going to do is to this 28, which is the longer one, the center one, you're going to add 1 inch, and then to this one you're going to add 1.5. Reason being, you need half an inch to join this to meet this, and then you need half an inch to join the lower one to meet this one, and then to this lower one now you need half an inch from it also to meet this one here, and then you need 1 inch to fold the edge. So that's why you added 1.5 to the lower one, 1 inch to the center one. And then to calculate the width you're going to be working with, all you need is your waist measurement. So your waist, so let's say your waist is 30, you're going to times it by 2, which will be 60. So the width of my fabric here is going to be 60 inches for the center one. And then for the lower one, what you're going to do is this 60, you're going to times it by 1.5. Whatever you get is going to be the width of the fabric round. So that's basically how you're going to calculate it, right? So now all I have to do, you see mine is ready now, right? It only has just this part here as the opening, which is going to be at the back, right? So this part here is going to be the center front, this is going to be the center back. So I'm going to join everything together and add my zip, and that will be it. So guys, this is it here. As you can see, I know you might be thinking that the space in between here is too small, but it's because my under bust to waist, the distance is just not too long. But for someone with smaller boobs, it will come up a little bit more. So, but this is what mine looks like here. And then you see how it came up here to the neck and then went back all the way down here. So you see, if I put my hand here, you see your bust is supposed to be here, your bust is supposed to be here. So that's basically it. And the distance in between is not that much. So like I said, I use bias, but you can use lining. But you know, with Akara fabric and something you want to wear as a casual dress, you're trying to imitate the casual dress, I don't want to do too much with the lining. So the only part that has the lining is just this center part, right, which is this part here. And you see the seams are hidden, the seams from the bust are hidden here, right? So that's basically it. So you see the tear, you see the back, and then that's basically what it is. So thank you guys so much for your time, and I will see you in my next video. Please guys, like, share and subscribe. Bye.